Hi, I'm Colin Shawn, CEO of Coppertree Solutions, and today I'm going to be talking about outfitting employee home offices and developing checklists and policies. One of the changes that we've seen in the last couple of years is really just some changing expectations for employees for their working environment. Obviously, everybody's had to kind of adapt to working from home. Some people were more prepared for that. Some people were less prepared for that. But I think it's something that as an organization, everybody needs to really think about where this is going to go in the long run. We've been doing this for 2 years now. If we haven't already figured out how to do it permanently, I think that is something that we need to give some thought. I think it's unlikely that most organizations are going to go back entirely to the way they were before. For a lot of organizations, there might be a shift back to some degree, but I think it's safe to say that it's never going to be exactly the same as it was before. So from an IT perspective, one of the challenges that we've had is how do we make sure that people are secure and ultimately productive in that new environment that we're dealing with when they're no longer in the office, and maybe we've lost some level of control where we don't have that same kind of ability to enforce standards and security that we might have had in a couple of years ago when everybody was in the office. There's a lot of technical things that go into securing your IT infrastructure for remote workers. One of the things that I think is overlooked sometimes is just having a policy. It's important to have a policy that lays out what's allowed and what's expected of people that are working from home. So I wanted to just look at some examples of things that you should have in your policy, and some things that we always recommend our clients to have in their policy are things like, who supplies the equipment? So you have computer, you've got monitors, you've got docking stations, webcams, lighting, things like that. Is that something that's supplied by the employer, or is the employee expected to provide that? If it is provided by the employer, are the employees allowed to use those for their own personal use as well, or is that dedicated to work only? Is there a secure way to access company resources when you are working remotely? It opens you up to a different kind of threat. Does the company have the tools in place and the procedures in place to be able to secure that infrastructure? And then do you have a minimum standard for internet connections? I know just from our perspective in working with our clients, one of the challenges that we've seen over the last couple of years is some people are working from home. Maybe they're in a more rural area and they just really don't have a good internet option. And so there's only so much we can do as an IT service provider to improve the internet connection. And in some cases, you're just not going to be able to work in a way that works well depending on your internet connection. So it's important to have some of these things in a policy where you say, in order for our employees to work from home, these are the minimum standards that need to be met. Maybe you say they need to be able to have a dedicated workspace where they can kind of close the door and be shut off from distractions. Maybe you say they need to have a certain type of internet connection. There's a lot of things that can go in there, but I think just spending a bit of time and going through and thinking about that, I think is time well spent. One of the things Coppertree does as part of our onboarding process when we bring on a new client is do a review of any policies and procedures that are in place. So if you don't have something in place now, it's something that we can certainly assist with. We have kind of a standard boilerplate kind of policy that we start with, and then we'll look at your particular organization and the specific needs you have in your company, and then we'll customize that with you. It's one of those things that seems a little intimidating if you think about starting from scratch to develop that. If you're not sure where to start, certainly we'd be happy to help with that, and we can share some of our typical policies and procedures, and then we can go from there. Thanks for joining me today as I talked about outfitting employee home offices and developing checklists and policies. Please visit our website at coppertreesolutions.ca to discover Coppertree today.